Welcome everyone to my YouTube channel, and today we will be talking on the very important topic, that is fever and pyrexia of unknown origin. So in this topic, fever and pyrexia of unknown origin, we will basically first talk about the normal body temperature and what are the areas where the temperature can be taken. So first of all, I will tell you what is normal body temperature. So there is a trick, that is there is a mnemonic, that is a OREO. Oreo. So you all have heard about a biscuit name is Oreo. So O means oral, rectal, ear canal, axillary. So these are the areas where the temperature can be measured. So this mnemonic is Oreo, is oral, rectal, ear canal and axillary. And so these are the areas where the temperature can be taken. And what are the best areas where the temperature can be taken? So see, actually the temperature of the person is actually a matter of discussion in order to understand the fever. If we do not get into the fever, there is no need of discussion about temperature. But we have to understand what is fever. So to understand the fever, we have to understand that what is the normal temperature of the body. So you should understand that in the different areas, the temperature can be different. The normal measurement can be different. Let's suppose oral temperature. So the mean oral temperature, when a study was conducted in the age group of 18 to 14 years of a healthy individual, it was found that the mean oral temperature is 36.8 degree plus minus 0.4 degree Celsius, that is 98.2 plus minus 0.7 degree Fahrenheit. So this is a mean oral temperature. And yes, you should know that there is diurnal variation in the temperature, that the temperature varies in the morning to the temperature in the night. So let's see, this is a real value given in the Harrison textbook of medicine. So I have taken from the Harrison. Different book have different values, but I thought that Harrison has a most appropriate value. That's why I kept this value. So low level at 6 p.m. So the temperature will be lowest at 6 a.m. in the morning. That is 97.5. See, at 6 a.m. the temperature can be 97.5, can be lower up to 97.5 and can be higher up to 98.9. So this is a normal range of this. So this value is 97.5 degree Fahrenheit to 98.9 degree Fahrenheit is a normal range of temperature in the morning. It's a normal range of temperature in the morning. So if any individual is having greater than 98.9 degrees Fahrenheit in the morning, then we will call it as a fever. Let us suppose don't only suppose, it is real fact that the temperature will be high in the normally it is high in the evening time, it is around in the 4 to 6 p.m. and the temperature can be lowered minimum in that time 98.9 degree Fahrenheit and can be maximum up to 99.9 degree Fahrenheit. So if you are measuring any person temperature, if you are taking any person temperature at the 4 to 6 p.m, then to call it a fever, the temperature of that individual should be greater than 99.9 degree Fahrenheit. So simply you should understand that in the morning the value will be different to call it as a fever, and in the evening the value will be different to call it as a fever. In the morning, greater than 98.9 degree Fahrenheit oral temperature, if the temperature will be if you are taking oral temperature and if it is greater than 98.9 degree Fahrenheit in the morning, then we will call it as a fever. And in the evening, if the temperature will be greater than 99.9 degree Fahrenheit, then we will call it as a fever. So I think you got the what is fever. So fever is just beyond the normal maximum normal range. Okay. So now you should understand that actually the ideal site, what is actually real definition of fever? This is the measurement quantitative type of definition of fever, but real, what is the exact meaning of fever? That it is defined as increase in core body temperature. Then you will ask me, what is core body temperature? Core body temperature means temperature of blood. But is it possible to take the temperature in the blood? It is somehow impractical. So ideal site for the to take the core body temperature is the pulmonary artery. So in the picture, you can see this is a heart, and I have shown you the pulmonary artery going into lungs. So ideal site is pulmonary artery, but it is not compliant. It is not compatible that just to take any body temperature, you will give you will put any kind of thermometer in the pulmonary artery. So it is not compatible. But yes, ideally you should take at the pulmonary artery. But though if you want to find out the core body temperature, the preferred site is lower esophagus. This is the impractical, but though also you want to find out the core body temperature, the preferred site is lower esophagus. But yes, these are the matter of only study. In a study, in academic point of view, in theories only you will see core body temperature. In real practice, we will not get more concerned about core body temperature. In the reality, we will see the temperature in the rectum, in the oral. We will take the rectal temperature, oral temperature, axillary temperature. We will focus on these areas. So see, I have said you, if you are taking the temperature in the oral cavity, just below the tongue, then to call it as a fever, it should be greater than 98.9 degree Fahrenheit in the morning and 99.9 degree Fahrenheit in the evening. Now take a basic concept that, see, rectal temperature is, you should keep in one thing in mind that oral temperature, you keep oral temperature in the middle, rectal in the above, and axillary in the below. So you should keep in mind that, let's suppose if any person is having 98.9 degree Fahrenheit in the oral cavity, let's suppose the temperature is 98.9 degree Fahrenheit. Then what will be temperature is in his axilla? Then in the axilla, the temperature will be minus 0.5 to 0.7. So let's suppose the most appropriate is 0.7. According to Harrison, the most appropriate is 0.7. So let's suppose 98.9 degree Fahrenheit minus 0.7, that is 98.2 degree Fahrenheit. So in the axilla, there will be decreased temperature. So 98.2 degree Fahrenheit in the axilla, so it is at least 0.7 less than the oral temperature. But the rectum temperature will be 0.7 more than the oral temperature, that is 98.9 plus 0.7, that is 100.6. So let's suppose you are taking fever in the morning at 6 a.m. Let's suppose you are taking the temperature in the morning time. So you are let's suppose you have now temperature greater than 98.9 degree Fahrenheit. Let's suppose the temperature is let us suppose the temperature at 6 a.m. is 99 degree Fahrenheit. Okay. So if the oral temperature is, let's suppose oral temperature is greater than 99 degree Fahrenheit, it indicates the patient is having fever. If you will see in the rectum, the temperature will be that time how much?
101.
190. Okay, sorry. So I was just telling that there was in the previous there was mistake in the calculation. So 98.9 plus 0.7, then it will be 99.6. So the rectum temperature will be 0.7. Normally it will be 0.7 greater than the oral temperature, and the axillary temperature will be 0.7 lesser than the oral temperature. So let us suppose if you are taking any individual, you are taking temperature in the 6 a.m. in the morning. So in the morning you are taking temperature. So you should, to actually call it fever, take reference of the maximum temperature. So maximum temperature is 98.9 degree Fahrenheit. So let us suppose greater than 98.9 degree Fahrenheit. I am taking 99 degree Fahrenheit. So now this is the fever, and if you will if you will take temperature in the rectum, it will be 99.7 degree Fahrenheit, and if you will take in axilla, it will be 98.3 degree Fahrenheit. So yes, so you are easily seeing that this temperature, all three temperatures are greater than the normal values. So if these temperatures are greater than the normal values in the morning, then we will call it as a fever. So in the morning, to call fever, the temperature, the temperature in the axilla should be greater than 98.2 degree Fahrenheit, in the oral greater than 98.9 degree Fahrenheit, and in the rectum greater than 99.6 degree Fahrenheit. Now let's suppose you are taking temperature in the evening. Let me clear you this thing. So let's suppose you are taking temperature in the evening. So the maximum point of the evening temperature is 99.9. So let's suppose this is oral. So this is 99.9 degree Fahrenheit. So this is up to this is normal. but greater than 99.9 degree Fahrenheit is actually fever. So let us suppose if any person is having 100 degree Fahrenheit, so this is actually fever in the oral, in the 4 to 6 p.m. And now the rectal temperature will be, how much it will be? It will be 100.6 plus 0.7. I have just added 0.7, and in axilla minus 0.7, that is 99.2 degree Fahrenheit. So in the axilla. So in the evening time, if the fever, if you are taking temperature in the axilla and if it is greater than 99.2 degree Fahrenheit, then it is a fever. In the rectum, it should be greater than 100.6 degree Fahrenheit to call it as a fever. And in the oral cavity, 99.9 degree Fahrenheit, greater than these values is taken as fever. So I think I had said you the actually real meaning of fever. Now let's talk about different patterns of fever. So let's start. ठीक है, fever बुझ गए ना बढ़िया से. So now let's talk about the pathophysiology of fever. So you should see this picture. So let us suppose this picture is hypothalamus and I have drawn the pituitary. So in the hypothalamus there is actually a set point. Set point means this is a set point for the temperature regulation in the body. Temperature regulation in body. That what is the range of temperature? What range of temperature should be in the body? That is actually that range is actually set in the hypothalamus. So let's suppose this area is the set point or the range that should be maintained in the body, and that is maintained by the hypothalamus. So actually how the heat is produced in the body. So there are main two areas where the body heat is produced. First of all, in the liver and some amount in the kidney also, they are performing the metabolic activities, chemical reaction, different kind of chemical reaction. So from that metabolism and the muscles are whatever we do any activity in the during daytime or in the any time. So muscle activity and metabolism combinedly will increase the body temperature. And whenever the temperature of the body increases, simply the temperature will be delivered in the blood. So whenever the temperature of the blood increases, that will actually signal will be actually sensed by the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus is sensing that the temperature is increasing, and it has a set point that if the temperature is beyond the normal range, it will act on the two areas, that is skin and the lungs. So it will act on the skin areas to activate the sweat gland to actually decrease the temperature, and it will also act on the lung to promote the expiration or more breathing so that the heat can be lost. So in this way, the hypothalamus is actually regulating the body temperature, and in this way the temperature regulation is present in our body. But what happens? Let's suppose if any infection, if any individual is getting any kind of infection insult. So if infection, what will do? Infection will actually induce production of pyrogens. So what is pyrogen? Pyrogens means certain kind of inflammatory mediators like the cytokines, like let's suppose interleukins. So one of the most major important interleukin is interleukin 1, interleukin 2. So interleukin 1 is a main matter of discussion. It will come in the later discussion also. So you should know interleukin 1. So interleukin 1 is a major pyrogen. So these interleukins, the cytokines, these pyrogens, what they will do? They will actually reset the set point in the hypothalamus. So let us suppose, so they will actually reset the point. Reset the point means, let us suppose previously the hypothalamus was in a range of 98 plus minus 0.7. So it was thinking that if the temperature will go beyond 98 plus minus 7, then only I will act, and then only I will give instruction to the skin and lungs. Okay, but let us suppose I have the pyrogens reset the set point, and now the set point, when the set point resets, then it takes the 99 plus minus 0.7. Now let us suppose the set point has reset now due to the pyrogens, and now the new set point is 99 plus minus 0.7. So when the temperature goes beyond 99 plus minus 0.7, then only the hypothalamus act. But up to that time, your body temperature is increasing, and you will having the fever symptoms. I mean the manifestation that we will get in fever. That is, whenever we get fever, we feel weakening up in our body, we feel malaise, we feel lethargic, we feel a kind of discomfort in our body. Sometimes we may feel headache. So I just said you that this actually pyrogens will reset. This I have just given a hypothetical value. This is not, it can reset up to any value according to the kind of pyrogens that is exposing into the hypothalamus. So in this way, after resetting the set point, the fever will be manifested. So this is the normal pathophysiology of the fever. Now we will basically talk about different patterns of the fever. So now let's talk about the patterns of fever. So I have in this graph I am showing you the vertical axis is showing the temperature and the horizontal axis is showing the time. So let us suppose this is the baseline temperature. So this is a baseline temperature. Baseline temperature is normal body temperature. So I am showing different kind of fever. So in first I am showing you continuous fever. I am showing you continuous fever. So in the continuous fever, what are the criteria to call a fever to be continuous? So there will be elevated body temperature and there will be, so this is the elevation, this is a depression, elevation, depression, elevation, depression. So the fever is actually fluctuating. The fever is actually fluctuating and it is also not touching the baseline. So in the first note two things, the fever is fluctuating and not touching baseline. See another picture. In this picture I will show you. Here also you can see the fever is fluctuating, not touching the baseline. But what is the difference between these two figures? These two patterns. The difference is that the fluctuation is, let's suppose this is a so see the fluctuation is actually less than 1 degree Fahrenheit. So fluctuation is less than 1 degree Fahrenheit. But here the fluctuation is greater than 1 degree Fahrenheit. And in both cases they will never touch the baseline temperature. It means that they will not actually touch the normal temperature. So in that case we will call it as a so if the fever is not touching the baseline but the fluctuation is present and the fluctuation is less than 1 degree Fahrenheit, then we will call it as a continuous fever. But if the fever is not touching the baseline but fluctuation is greater than 1 degree Fahrenheit, then we will call it as a remittent fever. Now what are the examples of continuous fever? So I have a very good mnemonic to learn at least 3 examples. L-I-E, lie. L-I-E, lie. So L means lobar pneumonia. L means lobar pneumonia. I means infective endocarditis. And E means enteric fever. Now let's take another pattern. Let's suppose the fever is actually so in this case see there is fluctuation also and the fever is touching the baseline also. So fluctuation also present and touching baseline. So if any fever touches the baseline, then we will call it as a intermittent fever. Then we will call it as a intermittent fever. Now there are different kinds of intermittent fever. Okay, so the different kind of intermittent fever are. Can you tell me the different kind of intermittent fever? Okay, Tertian fever, Quartan fever, Quotidian fever. Okay, so let's see what is the kind of fever in the tertian, quartan. What is the kind of pattern? So remember, tertian means 3. Tertian means 3. Quartan means 4, and quotidian means 2. So 2, 3, 4. Quotidian means 2. Quartan means 4. Tertian means 3. Remember, quartan has a word quarter. So quarter means 1/4. So remember 4. So what is this? Actually, in these cases, what will the fever like? Let me show you. So let's first talk about the tertian fever. So tertian fever, So in the tertian fever, the fever will be occurring every 3rd day. So let's suppose this is the 1 day, 2 day and 3 day. So in the 3 days the fever will be normal and again the fever will be present. Okay. So again for the next 3 days is normal, again the fever will be present, again normal, again present. Such kind of pattern is known as tertian pattern. And tertian pattern seen is
Plasmodium vivax.
Plasmodium vivax. Okay, so 3 days the fever occurring every third day. So in between the fever there are normal body temperatures. So for the 2 days there will be no fever, and on the third day there will be fever. For the 2 days there will no fever, again the third day there will be fever. So again for the 2 days there will no fever, and again the third day there will be fever. So such kind of pattern is actually tertian fever, and such kind of pattern will be seen in, for one example is Plasmodium vivax. Let's see the quartan fever. So the quartan fever, for the next 4 days, next 3 days there will no fever, and again there will fever. Again next 3 days there will no fever, again there will fever. So 3 days no fever, again fever. So such fever occurring every 4th day. So this is known as quartan fever, and it will be seen in Plasmodium malaria. Okay. So I think you got my point now. So these are the continuous, remittent, and different kind of intermittent fever. So now let's see one more thing, that take one more example of all these intermittent. So Quotidian means fever occurring every second day. So for the 1 day there will be normal. So 1 day there will be normal, and again 1 day there will be fever. So 1 day there will be normal, 1 day fever. So 1. This is Quotidian, and it will be seen in Plasmodium falciparum. And you get knowledge about this. So Plasmodium knowlesi. Okay. Now let's talk about now tertian. So every third day. So there will be normal 2 days. Again for 1 day there will be fever. So normal 2 days, again 1 day there will be fever. Such kind of pattern. It will be seen in Plasmodium vivax and quartan. So every 4 days. So for the 3 days there will be no symptom. Again there will be fever. For again 3 days there will be no symptom, and again there will be fever for 1 day. So this is one pattern seen in Plasmodium malaria. Now many of the students have confusion that I have told you that continuous fever there is enteric fever, and many of the students will think that in the enteric fever there will be step ladder pattern of fever. So I have shown you that in the enteric fever there is continuous fever. See, so I think you have written this. Okay. What are the criteria to tell a fever to be continuous? Fluctuation less than 1 degree Fahrenheit, not touching the baseline. Only these criteria will meet, then we will call it as a continuous fever. So let's suppose this is the baseline, and let's suppose the fever is starting now. Let's suppose the fever is starting from here, and let's suppose the fever increased and increased and increased and increased and increased. So you are simply watching that the fever is actually increasing in the step ladder pattern. The fluctuation is still, the increasing or decreasing fluctuation is still less than 1 degree Fahrenheit, and it is not touching the baseline. So it is also a continuous type of fever. A step ladder is a variant of the continuous type of fever. Okay, so that is why I have kept it in enteric fever. So this is a step ladder pattern. So now let's talk about the hectic type of fever. So see, hectic type is also a variant of intermittent type. Like step ladder was a variant of continuous type. Similarly, hectic type is variant of intermittent type of fever. So first of all, it is a variant of intermittent fever. It means that there will be touching of the baseline. So see, let's suppose there is a fever has started. So let's suppose the fever is started, and let's suppose for the 2 days it was like normal fluctuation, and on the third day there was a big swing in the fever. And when the big swing in means the temperature rise abruptly, let's suppose it is greater than 106 degree Fahrenheit, similar to hyperpyrexia. So let's suppose the temperature rise abruptly on the third day, and now there will be profuse sweating, and after the profuse sweating the temperature touch the baseline, and again there are 2 to 3 days again there. So such type of if there is a big swing, and after the big swing if the temperature touches the baseline, it is known as hectic type of fever. So you are simply watching that the fever is touching the baseline. So if the fever is touching the baseline, it is intermittent fever. And in this case, the hectic type, it is seen in the septicemia. Okay, it is seen in septicemia. It is also seen in lateral sinus thrombophlebitis. Now, whenever you give medication, the fever will actually fall by the two mechanisms. One mechanism is known as crisis, and another mechanism is known as lysis. So let's talk about crisis and lysis. So actually lysis, the mechanism lysis of fever pattern is seen in enteric fever. So what is lysis pattern of fever? So see, so in the enteric fever, let's suppose this is the baseline, and enteric fever, the fever will be continuous. So let us suppose the fever patterns is like this. Let's suppose the fever was increasing in this pattern. This is step-ladder pattern. And let's suppose at this point of time, I have started the treatment. I have given the treatment. So when the treatment will be given, the patient usually hopes that or expect that. So today I am diagnosed with tuberculosis, I mean typhoid, and I will be thinking that tomorrow I will get totally fine. In many cases, it is possible that today I am getting the diagnosis and today I am getting the proper treatment, and from very tomorrow I will be fine somehow in a good way. So in that cases, that is not seen with the enteric fever. In the enteric fever, when you start the treatment, the fever will also decrease by the step ladder pattern. The fever decreases by the step ladder. As the fever increases by step ladder pattern, so it also decreases by step ladder pattern. So if the fever decreases by step ladder pattern, and now it is touching the baseline, so such pattern is known as lysis of fever. So I think you understood what is lysis of fever. Okay. So in the typhoid, there will be, so if you will give the treatment, like if you are giving the antibiotics, let's suppose you are giving the ceftriaxone, then the fever will not decrease abruptly. So you should tell the patient that, see, your fever decrement will take time, it will not decrease abruptly, so you will be fine in 2 to 3 days, not you will be fine tomorrow. So such type of counseling should be given, and this is known as lysis of fever. Now take another example. So let's suppose there are some condition. Let's suppose this is baseline, and now let's suppose the fever is like, and let's suppose fever has a high swing, and you have given the treatment at this point of time. So high swing, and you have given the treatment. So just after the treatment, the fever will fall directly. It will, in one day, it will go to the normal baseline temperature. It will, in one day, it will test off the baseline temperature. So if the fever decreases abruptly after the treatment, then we will call it as a crisis of fever. Crisis of fever. So there are two patterns. If the fever decreases abruptly and touches the baseline in one day, it is known as crisis of fever. If the fever decreases in step ladder pattern, it is known as lysis of fever. So now let's talk about one more important concept, that normally for every 1 degree rise in body temperature, or 1 degree Fahrenheit rise in body temperature, the heart rate increases by 10 beats per minute. So normally in the fever there will be increased pulse or heart rate, but in some conditions there will be relative bradycardia in spite of rise in temperature. Mark my words, I am telling you relative bradycardia. What is relative bradycardia? So relative bradycardia means normally for 1 degree rise in body temperature, the increase in the heart rate should increase by 10 beats per minute. But in this case, the heart rate increases by, let's suppose in these conditions, the heart rate will not increase by 10 beats per minute. Let's suppose it will increase by 4 beats per minute, or 2 beats per minute, or 5 beats per minute. But yes, it will not increase by 10 beats per minute. So there will be tachycardia, but not as not like that of normal fever pattern. So there will be relative bradycardia. So that's why I am using my word relative bradycardia. So this is known as Fagett sign, F-A-G-E-T, Fagett sign, and such type of condition will be seen in typhoid, tularemia, brucellosis, mycoplasma pneumonia, malaria, Coxiella bruneti, Ligiolaria pneumonia, rickettsia, by using some drugs like the thiazide, allopurinol, beta blocker, and I have a mnemonic that TBM, CR. So TBM has a CR. So yes, remember the bad mnemonic. TBM CR. So T typhoid tularemia, B means brucella, M means mycoplasma, C means coxiella, R means rickettsia, and remember one or two drugs, thiazide, allopurinol. So these are the conditions where there will be relative bradycardia, not there will be bradycardia, there will be relative bradycardia. That is known as Paget sign.